Cannabis cafes, also known as marijuana lounges or social consumption venues, are establishments where people can legally consume cannabis products in a social setting. While they have been a popular concept in places like Amsterdam, they have been relatively limited in the United States due to strict regulations surrounding cannabis consumption. However, in California, there have been recent developments that could potentially allow for the establishment of cannabis cafes. California became the first state in the U.S. to legalize medical marijuana in 1996, and in 2016, it further legalized recreational marijuana with the passing of Proposition 64. This created a framework for the regulation and taxation of cannabis in the state. Under the current regulations in California, it is legal for adults age 21 and older to possess and consume cannabis for recreational purposes in private spaces. However, public consumption is generally prohibited, including in most businesses and public spaces. This limitation has created a demand for designated spaces where cannabis enthusiasts can gather and consume cannabis together. To address this demand, several cities in California have started exploring the idea of licensing and regulating cannabis cafes. These venues would provide a controlled and supervised environment for adults to consume cannabis products, similar to how alcohol is served in bars. The proposed regulations would include guidelines to ensure responsible consumption, such as restrictions on the amount of cannabis that can be consumed and requirements for on-site security. The idea behind cannabis cafes is to create spaces where people can socialize, enjoy cannabis products, and potentially learn more about the plant and its various strains. They could serve as community hubs, hosting educational events, tastings, and even promoting responsible consumption practices. It would also provide an alternative to consuming cannabis in private residences, especially for those who may not have suitable spaces or who prefer a social setting. While the concept of cannabis cafes is gaining momentum in California, it's important to note that the specific regulations and licensing requirements vary from city to city. Some cities, such as West Hollywood and San Francisco, have already taken steps to permit and license cannabis lounges. Other municipalities are still in the early stages of exploring the possibility. It's worth mentioning that not everyone is in favor of cannabis cafes. Some concerns raised include potential issues with impaired driving, second-hand smoke exposure, and the impact on public health and safety. As a result, regulations are being carefully crafted to address these concerns and ensure that cannabis cafes operate responsibly and in compliance with local laws. Overall, the emergence of cannabis cafes in California reflects the evolving attitudes and regulations surrounding cannabis consumption. While the concept is still in its early stages and faces certain challenges, it represents a significant shift towards normalizing cannabis use and providing safe spaces for adults to enjoy cannabis in a social setting. Licensing and regulations. Each city in California has the authority to establish its own regulations regarding cannabis cafes. This means that the rules and requirements can vary from one city to another. Some cities may have already implemented specific licensing programs for cannabis lounges, while others may still be in the process of developing regulations. Consumption methods. Cannabis cafes typically allow for various consumption methods, including smoking, vaping, and consuming edibles. However, the specific rules may differ depending on the city. For example, some cities may restrict smoking to designated outdoor areas or require the use of smokeless consumption methods indoors. Product restrictions. Cannabis cafes will likely have regulations in place regarding the types and potency of cannabis products that can be consumed on the premises. This can include limitations on THC content, the active compound in cannabis that produces the high sensation. The purpose is to ensure responsible consumption and prevent excessive intoxication. Age restrictions. Just like with alcohol, cannabis cafes will likely enforce age restrictions. Only adults age 21 and older will be allowed to enter and consume cannabis products on the premises. Valid identification will likely be required to verify age. Security measures. Cannabis cafes may have specific security requirements to ensure the safety of patrons and prevent unauthorized access. This can include the presence of security personnel, video surveillance systems, and proper measures for preventing underage consumption or overconsumption. Social and educational events. One of the potential benefits of cannabis cafes is their ability to host social and educational events. These venues can serve as spaces for cannabis enthusiasts to gather, share experiences, and learn more about different cannabis strains, consumption methods, and responsible use. Such events can help destigmatize cannabis and promote a culture of informed consumption. Public opinion and challenges. While cannabis cafes have gained support from many cannabis enthusiasts, there are still challenges and concerns to address. Some people worry about the potential negative impact on public health and safety, such as increased instances of impaired driving or second-hand smoke exposure. Additionally, zoning regulations, community acceptance, and potential conflicts with federal laws, which still classify cannabis as illegal, can pose hurdles for the establishment of cannabis cafes.